titled this first section, My Early Life Memories. Um, my earliest memories, and there's a couple of key ones. Um, uh, Before we were taken away from our parents, I remember one particular episode with my dad, William, and he had taken me for a walk. He had a shotgun and a beer can of some kind, and that's what I was told later. It was probably a beer can. I remember it being a can, but uh, I went for this walk, and he was kind of grumbling about things. And I found out later that he had been pretty severely ripped off. Uh, he had been drafted and went into boot camp and caught a virus and hit 108 temperature, and it kind of cooked him. And he ended up spending 30 years on the streets, a homeless person, and the VA didn't take care of him or nothing. And he had invented something, and Navy took him out for drinks, and he woke up the next morning with a $1,500 check and had signed over the patent rights. And so he didn't have a whole lot to say much about the government. I think he was pretty disgruntled, and my understanding at that time he had rolled off a house and broke his back and was out of a job. They were really hurting and pretty poor, and so he was pretty angry. And I remember that time. That was the last time I really remember with him. He shot the can and was grumbling, and I ran up to see where the can fell. I remember telling him the can's still there. You know, it's not all lost, because he was kind of in this hopeless place. I just remember that episode, and then some other episodes with my brothers and stuff, and I didn't really get them confirmed until later on when we were found. As when I was an adult, we talked about some of those episodes, and I realized, and they knew right where all this occurred and stuff. But one particular event that happened was I had gone out the back door, and I was in the backyard, climbed up a hill, and I was in really pretty tall grass, and all of a sudden there was a guy standing there, and I looked at him, and he was pretty incredible. Not really a t-shirt on, but that kind of shirt, and just really buff, but he was bald, and he told me, he says, like, don't be afraid, and I said, oh yeah, I'm not afraid. Anyway, and he said, I've come to give you something, and I was like, really? Okay. And he reached inside himself. He pulls out a sword. He says, I'm going to give you this, but it's not to play with. It's for when you need it later on, you know. And I was like, that's a pretty cool sword. And I remember thinking to myself, when this guy's gone, I'm going to play with it. I don't care what he says. So anyway, but he said, I got to give this to you the way I carry it. I'm going to give it to you. And he asked if it was okay. I said, yeah. And he put it in me like that. And I was like, you know, wow. And then I heard people calling from the house. I turned around, I turned back, and he was gone. And I think that was kind of like my first visitation, angelic. Years later, after I was adopted, I was watching a TV commercial. It was Mr. Clean on TV, and it looked a lot like that guy. And I remember shouting out, oh my gosh, I've met that guy. And Shirley came in and looked at him and said, well, that guy's not real. And I realized, oh, okay, I got to shut up. I think I'm nuts. And but from then on, I referred to him as Mr. Clean, and I've seen him over the years from time to time, and it's a very distinct memory. Kind of sets the stage here. So when we were taken away, I remember my brothers saying, try to remember, um, stay, keep with your sister Jan, stuff like that. And but the night they came and took us, I remember looking out the back window, trying to remember where I was like I want to make my way back to that home. And years later, like in 91, 92, I drove down that road where that happened, and that memory hit me, and it was a rush. I mean, it was intense, and it was just a few blocks from where the house was. Anyway, so we were taken to a boarding house, and I remember that first night they said, "Here's your bed," and I don't know that I'd ever slept in a bed before that. And they said, I said, "How long do you get to lay in it?" And they said, "Well, all night long." Of course, I didn't believe them. They said, "Yeah, this is yours all night long." When I grew up, when I was older, they found us. I asked my brothers, I told them about that, and they said, "Well, at home, if you fell asleep on the couch, you usually got kicked off because the older sibling would kick off the younger ones, and the older siblings slept on the couch while everybody else slept on the floor." And so that was why that occurred. So, and then when right before we were adopted, they brought us for a chance to meet, to say goodbye to our Vivian, who was my biological mom. And I remember going, and I remember asking the person I was with, "Will I ever see her again?" They said no. I said, "No, I can't go. I can't go see her." Uh, anyway, and when we were found when I was an adult, the very first thing that Vivian asked me was, "Why didn't you come see me?" And so it not only confirmed the memory, but all the emotions and some other memories and so on and so forth. And I told her, I said I couldn't go see it because I couldn't handle going through the separation again. And that's the reason I chose not to say goodbye.